Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Briargreaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood, boaters, or business insurance, there's nobody better in the business to work with than the good people over at Briargreaves Insurance. For more information, visit briargreavesinsurance.com or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. It is a Thursday edition of the Pewter Report podcast, but not our last of the week. We will have one tomorrow as we've jumbled around some of the podcast dates depending on when the Bucs are practicing. So this was day 7 of Bucs training camp. They returned to the gridiron after having yesterday off. They returned to practicing outside and also in the morning. So we're going to break down everything that went on during today's show and, of course, answer some questions and comments as well. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me, my co-host on Thursday shows is Adam Slavon. Adam, what's up, man? How we doing?
Matt, we're doing great. Excited to be on the show with you today. And I want to talk about this thumbnail that we have. There's a comment, tough look for Barton on the show art for this episode. I think it's a great picture. Vita Vea kind of reminds me of that one picture the Bucs made their profile picture where his helmet is turned sideways.
Yeah.
And I just want to say Vita so far through camp, he's been so physical, so dominant. It looks like he's kind of slimmed down a little bit, but regardless, excited for the show and talking about practice today.
Yeah, it's not even like Graham Barton has played poorly or anything like that. It just shows how physical of a specimen that Vita Vea is and who he continues to be. I can only think if Calijah Kancey is able to participate for most of training camp and be out there for week 1 of the regular season, how much that's going to help Vita Vea just as much. As Cali Buck says, Vita is also the second strongest rated on Madden. Yeah, some of the rankings are already starting to come out. I know Tristan Wirfs was at a 96. I think Baker was like an 85, I think. Yep. And Mike Evans was a 93, which was cool to see. But yeah, Vita Vea, I said this yesterday as well, Vita Vea and Graham Barton are just colliding into each other, and in a good way. It's not like it's messy or sloppy and stuff like that. But if Vita Vea is doing that to Graham Barton, and we're still so high on what Graham Barton can do for this team, I mean, it's only going to make him better with Vita Vea knocking the snot out of him like he kind of is on this play. But I think it's all in good nature with these battles between Vita Vea and Graham Barton. And shout out to the person, because I tweeted about the two of them the other day, and someone responded. It was a graphic of King Kong and Godzilla fighting against each other. And I thought that was a fantastic representation of these two Goliaths going against each other. So I'm all for it.
Yeah. And just for Barton, throughout camp so far, he's shown kind of a increased leadership role. He's making those second-year strides. And the only way to really make those strides is to be going up against Vita Vea and Calijah Kancey, and that old adage that iron sharpens iron. And if there was a theme for today's practice, Matt, I would say it was that. It was kind of a stalemate and some trench warfare where, both sides aren't really gaining the edge. It was the defense makes one play, the offense makes one play, and a lot of focus on situational football.
Yeah, there certainly was a lot more attention to not just starting at the 25 and trying to drive all the way down the field. They did that towards the end, but that was more of a 2-minute drill type of situation. I thought today specifically, now we should point out for everybody that Baker Mayfield didn't really start right away. When they went to 11 on 11s, it was actually Kyle Trask that participated first. So I tweeted out and got me thinking all right, Baker must have pretty much have the day off. And, a lot of guys like Mike Evans will, and Mike did participate today. A lot of guys will warm up, do some of the individual drills, and then they're pretty much done. And I think part of that too is, you have fans in the crowd. Today was military day, and that was awesome. They did the national anthem or at the beginning of practice, which was cool to see. It was great seeing so many people from our military and our armed forces out there today at practice. But knowing that you have fans there and season ticket members and practices are open to the public sometimes too, where like they want to see these players like just in the helmet and shoulder pads and stuff like that. So I thought that was going to be the case with Baker Mayfield. But then he came in like a little bit later on. So I don't know if it was just trying to keep Baker on a pitch count, if they want to do something situational where, in a game where if Baker got hurt, like against Indy, and then Trask has to come in and play a couple snaps, and then Baker goes back in, whatever the case may be. Well, they certainly jumbled it around a little bit. But I thought when Baker was in, there was a lot of running the football today, and that's why we have a picture of Rashad White. Buck Irving was in the mix as well. Sean Tucker a little bit too. But I thought Baker was very, very crisp today when it came to some of the red zone work that went on.
Yeah, and when you look at Mayfield and not playing and practicing as much as he has, it's kind of like in baseball, and I know the trade deadline is going on right now and all the craziness with that, but quarterbacks go 9 innings every single start.
That's true.
For them to do it in practice, it's a lot. And so for him to maybe, I don't know, go 6 innings, get a quality start today, I kind of felt that's what he did. He was in control of the pocket. You kind of saw him step up and try to make some things happen. But again, there was great plays made by the secondary too. And Kayvon Merriweather had another interception. The defense was still showing their ability to blitz. There was a sequence of 3 plays where there were 3 sacks in a row. So for Mayfield to go out there and do what he didn't have the most dominant day, but he didn't really have a bad day either. And I know the focus yesterday was on, should we be concerned with Baker Mayfield's interceptions? He didn't throw one today.
He did not. The only turnover today came from Kyle Trask by Kayvon Merriweather, who we'll talk about in a little bit. By the way, shout out to everybody in the chat watching right now. We have to give a big hello to Nathan Elliott. Hello, Nathan Elliott. Nathan was out there today shouting from the top of his lungs, saying hello to all of us, pretty much announcing us to everybody.
Yeah.
So, Nathan, hello to you. Appreciate all of your support at pewterreport.com.
You're the best.
Love the enthusiasm, the intensity, and everything like that. So wanted to give you a personal shout out on today's show as we get it rocking and rolling. It was back and forth for sure, because there were many times that I was kind of displeased with Charlie Heck's performance today. Now, granted, he's going against Yaya and Hassan Reddick and, Chris Braswell and things like that. And I kind of said that after practice, and you were like, I thought he actually looked pretty good in certain circumstances. So, some of these things can be subjective. Like Mike Evans the other day talking about Jerry Rice and how the GOAT of wide receivers, it's subjective. A lot of people have Jerry Rice as the GOAT, but that's a lot of it is chasing his career stats, where Mike said, you know what, if it's one game, I'd go with Calvin Johnson if it's just for one game based on physical tools. So everything is subjective for sure. What were your thoughts about Charlie Heck today?
Yeah, the one thing I want to mention there is you saw him kind of in those 11-11 periods where Yaya Diaby's getting the better of him. There were some cases where that was true, but in one-on-ones, Charlie Heck did well kind of holding Yaya Diaby away from the quarterback. And I mean, it's a tough task to be going up against Yaya every single time. There are going to be a handful of snaps where he gets in the backfield. He just has too much power and kind of bulldozes them. But overall, I thought the Heck held his own. Now, he's going to have to do that for the next few weeks leading up to the season, but I didn't think he did too bad.
It's unfair for offensive linemen. I think that's why it makes us appreciate people like Tristan Wirfs so much, is because, an offensive lineman, you could be great on, 64 plays, but if on the 65th play, you get beaten terribly,
everyone's looking at that.
Block, everyone goes, what the heck's wrong with this guy? No pun intended to Charlie Heck. That was not meant to go that way. And on the flip side, you could be an edge rusher going 70 times, get stonewalled each time, but if you get 1 sack, then it's like, wow, this guy had a pretty good game. And that's not always necessarily the case. So would you rather be better in team drills than one-on-one? I don't know. It's kind of, I guess it's more of a would you rather. It's not necessarily like which came first, the chicken or the egg, because in team drills, you might have help with the tight end and certain plays and stuff like that, where if it's just one-on-one, you're not, it's more circumstantial. There's not as much circumstances is really what I should say. But yeah, Charlie Heck, I think, kind of an up and down day. I don't think it was brutalized to the point of, what we saw from Justin School in that Detroit game last season. And there's going to be peaks and valleys with Charlie Heck, as well as like everybody else on the offense. But one person whose stock is certainly trending in the right direction, Adam, is Chris Braswell, who just continues day after day, practice after practice, to make his presence felt getting after the quarterback. And this is uber, super important now that David Walker is going to be out for the season.
Definitely. And of all the guys that we saw out there today, in my notes, I put Chris Braswell first. Other guys may have made bigger plays.
Yeah.
Kayvon Merriweather had the interception. Nick Jackson had a good sack. But when you look at Chris Braswell, I mean, head coach Todd Bowles put it best after practice. He said that he's gotten light years better than where he was last year. Last year, when he wasn't seeing the field until really late and he was kind of showing flashes, now you're seeing more of a finished product. And Bowles mentioned that he has an outstanding work ethic.
Yeah.
He's understanding more of the defense. And I mean, we saw that out there. There was a rep where he bulldozed right tackle Michael Jordan, not the basketball player, but he pushed him back enough to where Braswell affected Kyle Trask's throw and forced an incompletion. And then there was another rep where he completely blew by the right tackle and he was in the backfield right away. So seeing these reps, I think, is really encouraging for Braswell. You mentioned David Walker not being there in the fold anymore. I mean, Braswell has a true shot to be the third pass rusher.
Yeah.
And I think everything that we've heard over the offseason from Jason Light, from Todd Bowles, that they're excited. They think another year, like kind of having that redshirt season, like David Walker is going to have this year, is so beneficial for Braswell and his development. Because that's kind of how his career at Alabama started.
Yep.
He was behind Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, before he got his chance. And now you're going to see him get more of a chance this year.
He's earning it, which is good to see, because in some ways he could have just been handed it now that David Walker is going to be out for the season. That second play that you mentioned, I was most impressed by that because he timed the snap count perfectly. And that's the big thing I'm seeing from Chris Braswell is, yes, as Todd Bowles mentioned, he does know the plays, so he's not thinking about what's going on. But he's added more to his moves. And it kind of is a move, timing the snap count. I mean, Shaq Barrett made a career off.
He was a master of it.
And almost too good at it, because sometimes he was too fast and we get called for offsides. But you certainly would take the good with the bad with Shaq Barrett, and that's why he's the single-season sack holder in franchise record for the Bucs from that 2019 season. But Braswell, it was timing the snap, and then he also did like a hop step type of move. Like he was going to really bend it outside, but then it kind of ended up cutting the corner a little bit more too. So just giving different looks to the offensive tackles. Like everyone can keep practicing a swim move or a rip move, but to have different steps and to have the timing of it and all these different things, I think we're getting a full arsenal and a full repertoire of Chris Braswell too, which I think is going to be very, very important. We also saw another rematch of Hassan Reddick and Luke Gedeke. And the other day, Gedeke inside got the better of Hassan Reddick, and people kind of went crazy on social media about it. Today, Hassan Reddick fought back a little bit more. He had some move where he like really brought the physicality to Gedeke and kind of like with one arm tried to shove him out of the way and did a good job of it. These are two really good players. So I don't think it's a fault for Reddick for losing the other night. And I don't think it's a fault for Gedeke for, losing on a rep to Hassan Reddick this time around, because they're two really good players on this team.
They are. And in those battles of good on good, you're going to see one player kind of get the better of the other. And there's one more point I want to make on Braswell. You mentioned kind of having that full arsenal of moves. I mean, you're seeing a diversified pass rush from him, from Hassan Reddick, from Yaya Diaby. And I think all of this points to Larry Foote and just like how much better this room is going to be under the tutelage of Larry Foote, because he coached Reddick at Arizona, even though he's an inside linebacker mostly during that time. But Foote's resume, going back to Jason Pierre-Paul, getting the most out of Shaq Barrett, you're seeing him kind of get more out of Yaya Diaby and Chris Braswell. And we have an interception leaderboard of all the guys, but if we were to have a sack leaderboard, you would see Yaya and Chris Braswell leading it. And I think that's really encouraging. And that's not even accounting for the presence that Reddick will bring off the edge paired next to one of them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think we're only scratching the surface of what these outside linebackers can do. And when you pair that with the secondary that's been absolutely swarming and making play after play after play, they're really going to complement each other very, very well. And we will continue to talk about the defense, talk about the offense as well. But we do have a super chat. We got a couple super chats, but this
Yeah.
one will cut the line because it's a $20 super chat. So thank you to Steve Shute
Thank you so much,
for
Steve.
the very generous super chat, who says, we're so glad y'all are willing to deal with the heat on our behalf. Thank you very much. It was hot out there today, but there were
Not
clouds.
as hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, we're very lucky. We get to go and watch football for several hours. So we're more than happy to do so. But thank you anyway. What are your thoughts on Payne Durham and his blocking? We know he can catch the ball, but he could be next level if he fixes that part of his game. Adam, I'll have you go first because we spoke about Payne Durham a little bit on yesterday's show when we recapped. Yesterday was Wednesday when we recapped Tuesday night's practice. So let's hear your fresh thoughts about Payne Durham.
Yeah, I mean, we've already covered a lot of the bases with Payne Durham and his blocking this offseason. I mean, Scott Reynolds, his first camp diary on Payne Durham was how much better of a blocker he wants to be. And so far, Steve, to answer your question throughout camp, I feel like he has been. And I think that's why we've seen him on the field more, is because his blocking is a really strong asset. And what he does in those two tight end sets, we haven't seen Cade Otton out there. So you're seeing more of Durham kind of taking an opportunity to make his case. And you pair his blocking ability with being a red zone threat and his size. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. He's going to be tight end too, I would think. But to see him kind of eating the Cade Otton snap count a little bit, Otton shouldn't be on the field 95% of the time when you have someone like Durham who offers two really strong traits.
So I think it's actually completely flipped for Payne Durham. Now, he did have a lot of catches, like especially at Purdue, but he was mostly a red zone guy. He came in this year being like, I'm going to be a blocking tight end, as Adam referenced the training camp diary that Payne Durham has. He's working on the blocking a good amount, but to be honest with you, he's certainly improved as a blocker, and I love that he's going to be physical, hard-nosed, and all that stuff. He's definitely going to bring that. I've seen a decrease in the receiving from Payne Durham.
That's a good point.
He's not that down the field threat. I know he made the play on the go route during the season when they did 4 verts with 3 tight ends and whatever the case was. I think he can be super effective in the red zone, but I think that's going to be his role, is in the red zone. I mean, there was a play the other night on Tuesday night where, he's going down the field. There's a smaller defensive back on him. He goes up, jumps, should have made the catch. He had it, but as he hit the ground, he dropped it. We're seeing those big plays from Devin Culp, but we're not seeing it from Payne Durham. And that's okay, because again, this is a tight end group, not by committee, because Cade Otton's still going to be the main
He's
guy.
still the one, yeah.
But you have all of these different parts of what makes a great tight end. With Payne Durham, I think it's the blocking. With Devin Culp, it's certainly the speed and the receiving. And if you combine Payne Durham and Devin Culp, they do make a whole and complete tight end to complement what you get with Cade Otton as well. So could Payne Durham be next level? I don't think he has the speed to.
No.
But I think at the same time, like, Payne Durham's going to have a role because he is that physical blocking tight end. Like, he's going to be on the goal line if they go at least 2 tight ends, which you typically do when you're doing goal line. But I could see Devin Culp eventually being tight end too, because Todd Bowles called Devin Culp a feisty blocker. And we know that he's already a good receiver and a better receiver than Payne Durham. So I'm not sitting here trying to knock Payne Durham by any means. I'm very grateful that he's a friend of the program and is doing the training camp diary. But if you're asking me how he's doing, I think he's doing well as a blocker, but for whatever reason, it's kind of diminished as a receiver. And he's not scoring those touchdowns that he was like in other training camps and stuff like that. Now, this could all turn around. We're only 7 practices in. He could look great in the joint training camp against the Titans. He could look great in the joint training camp against the Steelers. But for what it is right now, Payne Durham excelling in one area, but struggling in another, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think his skill set would have been better probably in like the early to mid 2000s when you had like Jason Witten and Heath Miller as like those big blocking tight ends. I think that was more of that's more of Durham's game. I mean, he's going to be a blocker,
For
and I'm glad
sure.
he started to carve out that role because his speed you mentioned, he runs a 40 in like 4.9 seconds. That's not blazing any stopwatches out there, but I think he does enough to really kind of carve out a niche in this
Yeah.
tight end room and kind of making the same point with Larry Foote, what Justin Peel's kind of doing with these tight ends
Mhm.
and focusing on their blocking. Like Kate Otten last year, he went from being kind of a below average blocker to pretty solid, and you're kind of seeing Durham make those same strides.
Yeah, it's a really good coaching staff. And again, not to bring back old stuff, but there's a reason why other teams, wink, wink, wanted to take Brian Picucci and Kevin Carberry and Justin Peel and bring them to another team in the state of Florida. But the Buccaneers said no, absolutely not. Let's stick with the offense because we talked about that it was a back and forth type of affair. And we talked about Baker Mayfield looking pretty good. Jalen McMillan scored a touchdown on a swing pass. There was another swing pass. I want to say maybe it was Sean Tucker or running back, or maybe it was Devin Culp too. But they did like another kind of short pass, bubble screen type of thing to score a touchdown. So that was like a little bit of a wrinkle.
Yeah.
But in your eyes, Adam, what made the offense look good enough to push back and fight back against a defense that's kind of gotten the better of the Bucs offense, I'd say, through the first 7 practices?
Yeah, what I really liked from the offense was kind of the resilience that they showed on the last drive when they were playing that situational football, trying to march down the field in 2 minutes. Although they didn't score the touchdown, what connection that was formed between Kyle Trask and Dennis Houston. I know you mentioned
Yeah.
in your insider today, Pewter people check it out. But Houston, he was like the saving grace on that drive. He had 4 catches and making them on the sideline, making them in clutch situations where it was required. I mean, not a lot of guys on offense stood out today, but I would say Houston was kind of making a problem in the wide receiver room. I mean, right now, Cameron Johnson, him being sidelined, he's not really fighting for that last spot. You would imagine 5 of them are secured, but you want another guy to kind of step up and make a case. And it's going to come down to what they do on offense, what they do on special teams. But of all those guys, I thought Houston did the best today.
He did really well. And you know what? I feel like the past couple of training camps, Kyle Trask finds like one player in particular and just builds
He
insane
just,
chemistry with them.
yep,
Last year it was Sterling Shepard, without a doubt. It was Sterling Shepard. This year it's starting with Dennis Houston. And Dennis Houston kind of started camp slow. He had a couple of drops the first 2 practices, but today was his best practice, and he's been getting a ton of targets. Now, some of it is because of the injuries. Let's remember, Chris Godwin not participating, Mike Evans essentially on a pitch count, no Cameron Johnson again, no Trey Palmer. So, somebody's got to eat up those reps, and it's been Houston that's really been taking advantage of getting some more opportunities. He made, I would say, like 7 or 8 catches today, and 4
yeah,
of them were on that last drill where the Bucs had to drive all the way down the field. A little bit of pitch and catch, really, a little bit of just, hey, I'm open, and Kyle Trask would find him. And he did it in a couple of different ways, too. He was splitting the defense, finding the pocket in the zone, and, getting the first down, or whatever the case may be. There were a couple of deep balls as well. So it was good to see him getting more involved. His story is very interesting too. Like, he played at Western Illinois, not necessarily a football powerhouse by any means. And he's been in the league longer than I expected. He
yeah,
was with the Cowboys in 2022, was on the Giants, like the Cowboys, not the practice squad, just on the Cowboys in
just
2022.
casually on the
Yeah,
Cowboys.
just casually in Dallas. 2023, he was on the Giants practice squad and then signed with the Bucs practice squad in October of 2024. So he's not exactly new to Tampa Bay and this franchise and being in the building here, but no one really thought much about him. We have to be real. No one
Yeah,
really discussed him at all when it came to, making this team because, the top 4, Tez Johnson is probably a really good chance to be wide receiver 5. So you have Sterling Shepard, Cameron Johnson, Ryan Miller, Trey Palmer. Now you add Houston into the mix. I mean, somebody's got to win the job. Rakim Jarrett as well.
yeah.
Houston, I think, if no one else is going to be practicing, you have to bump him up to the top of the line. Ryan Miller continues to miss time as well. nobody's really around except for him and Rakim Jarrett. And if we're comparing Cedric Houston and Rakim Jarrett, Cedric Houston's been the much better wide receiver throughout this year's training camp than Rakim Jarrett. We'll see if the Bucs keep 6. Sterling Shepard, again, I think is a shoe-in for the practice squad just because he doesn't want to play anywhere else. He's not going to go anywhere else. So you put him on the practice squad. Houston has an outside chance, I think, to go and make this team.
Yeah, I think he does. And you brought up a good point with Sterling Shepard is that the Bucs can stash him on the practice squad and not have to worry really of him leaving to go for another opportunity elsewhere because he loves Baker Mayfield, he loves the city of Tampa and being a dad down here. So that kind of gives some roster flexibility. And it's almost interesting. Like, will the Bucs keep 6 wide receivers or will they keep 4 running backs? Is that an area where they can kind of stash a couple guys on the practice squad? That's also something to consider. But you mentioned like Houston making the most of his chances right now. The other day it was Tej Johnson. And the other day before that, it was Emeka Ibuka. Like these guys, this is what training camp is for. Making the most of your chances when you get them and these reps, especially with Godwin and Evans kind of being on a pitch count too. You're seeing some of these backup wide receivers step up. And so it was encouraging to see Houston. But now you kind of want to see some other guys like, hey, what can you do? Why do you deserve to be wide receiver 6?
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. And if you want to see something like working with the best insurance people in the business, well, you got to go and see Briar Greaves Insurance. If you're a longtime fan of the Pewter Report podcast, you probably remember the late, great Mark Cook talking about Briar Greaves Insurance. Pewter Report Scott Reynolds has been a Briar Greaves customer for years, and there simply is not a better insurance company in the Tampa Bay area. So visit briargreavesinsurance.com to see for yourself. Briar Greaves Insurance is family owned, and their main goal is helping people. They want to help people find the right insurance policy for you and your family. Whether it's home or auto, boating insurance, or business insurance, turn to Briar Greaves and find out why their personal touch and customer service sets them apart. The days of waiting on hold to speak with an insurance representative that you don't even know are over. With Briar Greaves Insurance, you'll have a relationship with your agent who can answer your questions and advise you on the best policies. As 2 recent hurricanes have unfortunately shown all of us that live in the Tampa Bay area, there is a cost to living in paradise. Briar Greaves can help make sure you have the right hurricane and flood insurance to make sure you and your home are protected. Visit briargreavesinsurance.com today. That's Briar, B-R-I-E-R, Greaves, G-R-I-E-V-E-S. Call their office today at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166 and tell them that Pewter Report sent you. Let's get to a couple of other super chats that everybody has been nice enough to send over to us. We will get it started with Zach Jarvis, a Pewter
Thank you, Zach.
Platinum member as well. Thank you very much, Zach. Says, since Walker got hurt, do you think the Bucs will try to get another edge rusher or maybe Christian Wilkins? A lot of drama with what's going on with Christian Wilkins, but he is a defensive tackle where David Walker is an outside linebacker. So if the question is, they're not going to go after Christian Wilkins. I don't think anyone really wants to deal with that right now. And they drafted Elijah Roberts, and there's some good competition as well, Adam, with some of those other defensive tackles. We just talked about Houston going for the last wide receiver spot. There's a couple of defensive tackles that are trying to find the last defensive tackle roster spot. So I don't think they're going to bring in Christian Wilkins for the time being. And who knows what's going to happen with, the Raiders are trying to get more money that it was guaranteed to him. So there's so much going on there that I feel like you're probably better not bringing that into that storyline into Tampa right now. It's way different than Antonio Brown and hey, they have a hole at the third wide receiver spot. As for bringing in someone else, an outside linebacker, I mean, I don't know. I still think the depth is pretty good when it comes to improved Braswell. Now, if this was last year's version of Braswell, I think
you probably get somebody else.
I would be supporting it more. But this year's version of Braswell and then the steady Eddiness of Anthony Nelson, all reliable. I think you go and see what you have with Peebles, who's trying to make this team, and then, of course, Jose Ramirez and Marquise Watts. And maybe that's something you address in the middle of the season if you're not getting the production that you want.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the on the head with both of those points. When it comes to Wilkins, like, they're too deep with 2 stars in Vita and Kalijah. Then you have Logan Hall, who's a solid starter, entering a contract year, but you don't really want to mess up with the depth there. They have Greg Gaines as the 4th guy, Roberts, and then you mentioned the competition kind of brewing between C.J. Brewer, who had 2 sacks last year, kind of made an impact when he was on the field, and then you also have Mike Green, who also had 2 sacks in a practice a couple days ago, I want to say. So defensive tackle, they're fine. When it comes to outside linebacker, they're 4 deep with solid players. Bowles was kind of naming them off the other day. And then you have Marquise Watts and Jose Ramirez. This is kind of their last stand, their last chance to really kind of make an NFL team. And I think the team still wants to see a little bit more out of them. How much they have really progressed over the years is another question. But Warren Peoples, he's another option at the end of the roster. It's kind of like the quarterback situation where another arm, another edge rusher wouldn't hurt, but I don't think they're going to go out of their way to try to force something.
By the way, there were a couple of roster moves made by the Buccaneers. They signed Owen Wright, who they actually had tried out, and he was at their spring practices, running back. He is now on the team. And they brought in another wide receiver as well, Jaden Smith, I believe his name is. So he will be
Will Smith's son.
Yeah, not Will Smith's son. What was that movie they did together? Like After Earth or something like that? Apparently it bombed in the theaters, but that was years ago. Anyway, 2 new Bucs on the team right then and there. They need another body in the running back room because you're not going to run Bucky Irving, Rashad White, and Sean Tucker into the ground. But let's get to Mike Wells, who has 2 super chats. We'll start with this one. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mike, for this $5 super chat. Says, great content, guys. You're doing God's work. Haha. Love seeing you on the show, Adam. I don't know if we're doing God's work, but we are certainly having a great time watching Bucs practice. And yeah, we love having Adam on the show.
Yeah, really appreciate you, Mike. I know you're always in the chat, and the kind words mean a lot.
Great having Adam on. Mike with another one says, and thank you for this $5 super chat. I'm a big believer in Devin Culp. You guys have been loving seeing him get extra work while Cade is out for a bit. Also, same goes for Nick Jackson. This is probably a good time to talk about another big storyline from today. If you are an Iowa Hawkeye, you have to read today's Bucs Training Camp Insider, or whatever we're calling it now. Bucs Camp Insider, because no, Tristan Wirfs is not back, unfortunately. We'd love it if Tristan Wirfs was back. But it was a big day for Nick Jackson, and there's a great little subplot going on. First of all, Iowa against Nebraska, a great rivalry in college football. But Nick Jackson from Iowa, John Bullock from Nebraska, 2 undrafted free agents that are getting a little more playing time because Anthony Walker has not returned. He hasn't been at training camp at all as far as participating. He's been on the sideline. And Levante David has missed 2 days in a row and is on that pitch count. Today was a great day for Nick Jackson. He had a sack on Kyle Trask, blitzing up the middle. I mean, the offensive line kind of parted like the Red Sea, but, nonetheless, he used his speed to get to Kyle Trask. He was good in pass coverage. He was making some tackles, some stops during red zone and goal line as well. Nick Jackson, very exciting player to watch. John Bullock has been a guy that, the other day he was covering Tez Johnson. You know how tough that is to do? Tez Johnson was covering him on a crosser route, been involved in a lot of stuff. But it's been really cool to see these 2 inside linebackers, and Todd Bowles spoke about them after practice as well. He says both Nebraska and Iowa are very, I guess he's calling them that, are very smart football players. They picked up the scheme very well. It's hard to keep saying they're rookies when they do everything normally. It's almost rare when they make a mistake. Both of those guys have very strong chances. He said very strong chances and then had a very strong showing. So when he said very strong chances, I'm guessing he meant like chances to make the team. It'll be great to see them in the preseason games. I think those are 2 players that a lot of people should really keep their eye on for this team. And, we'll see what happens next season as well. But these 2 guys are bringing it for a position group that has a lot of veterans. It's these young players that have certainly stood out today.
Yeah, they're bringing it. And from the moment that Nick Jackson tried out with the team during rookie minicamp, like his profile really stood out to me. Across 6 seasons in college, he spent the last couple of years at Iowa, he had 555 tackles, 19 pass breakups, 17 sacks. Like, he was a stat sheet stuffer. And then you kind of saw it today. It was Nick Jackson to me and Deion Jones who were kind of racking up tackles across the middle, holding their own in coverage. I mean, I saw Deion Jones, I think, in coverage like 4 straight times in a row. So, like, these guys are getting an opportunity at extended playing time because no Levante David, no Anthony Walker Jr. I know we had that roundtable this week. Like, I like what I'm seeing from these undrafted inside linebackers. I think they're probably better than J.J. Russell was the past couple years he was with the team. But where's Saras Dennis, Matt? Like, I know Bowles today was kind of talking about, I love what he's doing from a communication standpoint. He's being that Mike linebacker, relaying all those defensive calls, but kind of want to see him do what he did at OTAs, get some interceptions, get some sacks, do something for me.
Yeah, I feel like they're not blitzing him a ton where they did blitz, the other 2 players that we just talked about. And there's been a lot of defensive back blitzes. We've seen Jacob Parrish blitz. We've seen Antoine Winfield Jr. blitz. But I don't think Saras Dennis has been blitzing as much. And I don't know if that's by design by Todd Bowles because he's kind of saving it for the regular season. But, I mean, this is why you're in practice. You're supposed to practice those type of things. Now, I'm not going to knock Saras Dennis for the lack of interceptions because they're not throwing it his way. And why aren't they throwing it his way? Well, there could be guys open in other spots. Sure. That could be one case. But 2, they're not even throwing it near his direction. So that leads me to believe that Saras Dennis is playing such good coverage and is doing such a nice job taking tight ends out of the play legally, obviously not like, breaking their knees or ankles or anything like that, that quarterbacks are just looking the other way. I mean, quarterbacks with Baker Mayfield and Kyle Trask and Connor Bazelak. I think he's going to be fine when it comes to his coverage and being able to make plays. I don't think he's had many opportunities to try to take the ball away because the quarterbacks are just going in other directions and in other situations when it comes to Saras Dennis. Now, before I had mentioned that if you're an Iowa Hawkeye fan, you would have loved today's practice. That's because Nick Jackson was the only Hawkeye doing a lot of great stuff in today's practice. Kayvon Merriweather, as we mentioned earlier, was the only defensive back or player today to record an interception for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was off of Kyle Trask. He jumped the route as Trask was looking for Rakim Jarrett and took it the other way for a pick 6. Only Kyle Trask could have technically tackled him, and he gave a little bit of an effort. But I would think in the game itself, it's likely Trask does not make the tackle. So a pick 6 for Kayvon Merriweather. That's now his 2nd of training camp. And that's tied for the team lead during training camp right now. I think he's quietly having a pretty solid training camp because there's been a lot of attention to Parrish and J.J. Roberts and all of the undrafted free agents and guys that got drafted with, Benjamin Morrison as well. All of those guys have been getting the attention, the headlines, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But Merriweather, who I think was kind of a fringe roster guy, has certainly given himself for more cushion.
Yeah, and I think Todd Bowles, like, he's always one for one-liners, but he had some kind of revealing ones the other day about Christian Izzy and saying that he's already going to make the team. But talking about Kayvon Merriweather, shed a similar light talking about him, said he was one of the unsung heroes defensively last year when they were going through it. Injuries at safety, when they were signing guys like Ryan Neal back off the street. I mean, Merriweather came in. He made some plays when he was on the field. He had a forced fumble, a sack. Going back to last preseason against the Bengals, he had a really nice interception. But he also mentioned that he's one of the smartest guys on the back end and that he relies on him to do kind of a lot of the dirty work, a lot of the assignments. He kind of moves them all over the place. I mean, we talk about these defensive backs being chess pieces. Mm-hmm. And what I've liked from Merriweather is that he's kind of proven to be one, and he also has special teams value. So I know there's a competition brewing at safety with the undrafted guys, J.J. Roberts, Shiloh Sanders, everybody in the fold. But you really like what Isian's brought, kind of being Winfield's backup, but then Merriweather kind of being Tyke Smith's backup.
I also enjoyed what Todd Bowles had to say when he was like, I bet that Merriweather didn't think that I liked him
the
first time around. But then he said, like, we sat down, we watched tape together, and I gave him my message of how he can improve and everything like that. And he said he's very proud of Kayvon Merriweather because he's, taken that very seriously and has improved. And that's why he's doing such a good job in training camp right now. It was also cool to hear from Todd Bowles. He was asking about who's been involved with the nickel position, who's getting reps and all of that stuff. And Todd Bowles pretty much said everybody. He said Parrish is there, Izzy is there, Tyke is there, JJ Roberts is there. This is all verbatim. Zion is taking reps there. We have a bunch of guys. Winfield is taking reps there. We have a bunch of guys that know how to play nickel and learn how to play nickel. It gives us options going into a game, in and game out, of things we want to do. Right now, everybody is doing a very good job where they're supposed to be. We'll look at the preseason games and we'll see what combination matches up best for us. Parrish has been taking a lot of reps. Tyke takes reps. Izzy takes reps. JJ takes reps. Meaning Winfield, takes reps. It's a smorgasbord right now. I've used the word smorgasbord before, for sure. I did not have it on my bingo card that Todd Bowles was going to be using it.
Yeah, that's an interesting word choice. And I know you've seen that Adam Silver meme where he's like, get ready to learn. It's
Yes,
like whenever
yeah.
a defensive back comes to Tampa, it's like, get ready to learn nickel, buddy, because all of them are kind of cameoing over there. And this, I kind of want to connect it to what Zion McCollum had to say, because he was talking about, playing in the nickel some this year against, Falcons wide receiver Drake London. And, Zion McCollum was his agent was there today. And I found that interesting because, the Bucs, they just guaranteed Baker's money going into 2026, most of his deal. But Zion McCollum could be in line for a new deal. And he was kind of talking about that, the pressure of playing in a contract year. But between him and Jamel Dean, I think one of the themes of their press conferences was, we got to be productive. And we haven't seen that in camp so far. But, maybe they start turning a corner.
I do want to talk a little bit more about Zion, and certainly want to talk a little bit more about Jamel Dean too. But first, let's talk to everybody about USF football. It is right around the corner, and tickets are on sale now for USF. The 2025 season kicks off against Boise State at home on August 28th. Their homecoming is also October 18th against FAU. USF has been sponsoring Pewter Report's all of training camp, really, our training camp write-ups and all that good stuff. So visit www.usfbullstix.com. That's www.usfbullstix.com. I mean, USF is a pretty good team now. They won a bowl game last year. It's watching college football at Raymond James Stadium, having a great time. They have some pretty good opponents. They've gone toe-to-toe with Alabama before. So go out and support your local team, the USF Bulls, and hopefully they're in store for a great season. So shout out to USF. We also have a couple of USF interns this year working behind the scenes for PewterReport.com. So shout out to the Bulls. Let's get back to Zion McCollum, though. Another thing, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the nickel discussion. Zion talked about that he loves the fact that he's not just playing on the left side of corner. He's moving around everywhere. And he specifically mentioned that the Falcons, who the Bucs play in week 1, moved Drake London all over the place. I don't know how teams are going to game plan for the Bucs defense because nobody's going to be in the same spot for the next game. No. It's extremely difficult, but an advantage for the Bucs.
Yeah, and I've loved what I've seen kind of from the Bucs defense throughout training camp so far because, as we mentioned earlier in the show, they've kind of gotten better at the offense. And this just isn't any offense we're talking about, not a JV football offense. No, a top 5 scoring offense in the NFL last year. And they've kind of had the upper hand. And you see that, I think, the marriage between, we talk on offense between the run and the pass, but you're kind of seeing on defense between the pass rush and the coverage. And having an improved pass rush, guys like Hassan Reddick, Kalijah Kancey taking the next step, Yaya Diaby. Having that front allows Todd Bowles to do so many creative things, and especially in the secondary where these guys, they know how to play everything. Antoine Winfield Jr., like he plays nickel, he can play free
Yeah.
safety. He's a roaming center fielder, but then you also have Zion McCollum, who is the most athletically gifted corner in the NFL. Just kind of, I could play here, I could play there, I could play everywhere. And so I think like just seeing all that come together, it's been so encouraging because you
Mhm.
saw the defense last year off coverage, playing in zone. We got all these injuries. We can't really be moving guys around or playing to our strengths. Now you're going to see them do that. And I think they have like a second line of guys behind them, like all these do it all defensive backs that whoever, if injuries arise, like you're going to see the
Mhm.
next guy step up and actually, unlike last year, be more capable.
Yeah, you're confident in anyone kind of stepping into a role where you're usually not about certain players. All these players are getting interceptions, but Zion McCollum has not just yet. Now he came very close today. He jumped a route as well, but Jalen McMillan essentially had to become a defensive back and swatted the ball away. But Zion was still kind of kicking himself that he didn't make those plays because that's the plays that he's training for, that he wants to make this year. But Zion's coming very, very close. Another player that had a good day with some pass breakups is J.J. Roberts. His second play, I thought, was so big when he tipped the ball in the corner of the end zone. That was big time for him. I'm so impressed with J.J. Roberts. He gets better each practice.
Yeah, I fully agree there. And you mentioned a second pass breakup. I thought the first one was pretty good too because he was covering a Mecca. No, he was covering Tej Johnson, but he was
Mhm.
diving to make the pass
Yeah.
breakup and just kind of showing that willingness to make the play. Even though you're in practice, you're still making a full effort. And I think that's what you're kind of seeing out of Roberts. And he's someone last year for Marshall, like he showed he was a tackler. He didn't have a ton of ball production, but you're kind of seeing him make plays on the ball. And that's not the easiest thing to do in Todd Bowles' defense. So really like him. And I think he has a true chance of making this 53-man roster.
I believe he's going to make it.
Yeah.
I believe he makes it and Shiloh gets on the practice squad. I think that's how it's gonna shake out for this team. Because JD Roberts has made more plays than Shiloh, and we
Yep.
like Shiloh.
We do.
The fanfare is great, the YouTube channel is great, but if we're talking about who's made more plays, it's JD Roberts. There's really no question about it. So we'll see how it unfolds. Again, we're only 7 practices in. We got to talk about Jamel Dean. He said something after practice that I found quite interesting. He was kind of asked about his experience being a Super Bowl champion, what kind of wisdom can he part on everybody else, and he took it in a different direction. Of course, he won a Super Bowl with the Bucs in 2020, and he goes, "I always think back to that year and think about the team we had and compare it to this team. They are very similar, but I think we are better than the team that won the Super Bowl. The camaraderie and how we all plan together. Everyone has this grit to them where we just want to keep competing and help each other get better." That is a big time take from
Yeah.
Jamel Dean that makes me want to ask Mike Evans. That makes me want to ask Anthony Nelson. That makes me want to ask Levante David. That makes me want to ask Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, everybody else that's still remaining from the 2020 Super Bowl team. I want to know all of their opinions now because that is a spicy take by Jamel Dean. I'm curious what everyone has to say about it in the comments as well, whether or not they agree or disagree, because it's tough
Yeah.
because you got to talk about the whole team. And I know we're high on Hassan Reddick and Yaya Diaby being a great combo, but Shaq and JPP is really, really tough to be better than. Devin White, when he was good, is better than, I think, Saras Dennis at his overall best. And we're talking about Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski. I think Dean may have a point when talking about the actual secondary itself, because Antoine Winfield Jr. is still there. And I
Yeah.
think this secondary has more abilities to get takeaways compared to Dean and Carlton Davis. And Mike Edwards was a ball hawk for sure. But I don't. It's a bold take for sure. It's
It
a
is.
spicy take.
Yeah, and for Dean, like someone who prides himself on not making a scene, I felt like he made a pretty big scene there, saying that
Yeah.
this 2025 team is better than the 2020 team. But for the reasons that he outlined, Matt, I
Mhm.
would agree with him that the camaraderie, the chemistry, the
Sure.
communication is miles better. And he talks about the grit. I mean, this team embodies what Baker Mayfield does on 3rd and 10 when he's just running up the field. I'm not sliding. I'm bowling him
Yeah.
over. I feel like that toughness and the chemistry is what is going to make this team great. And you can't argue with Dean on that point. Now, it is about the talent level. This team is not as proven as the 2020
Yeah.
team. There aren't so many veterans like Gronk, like AB being the 3rd wide receiver, like Shaq Barrett, but they're hungry. And you
Mhm.
kind of know that, like, listening to all these press conferences, whether it's Antoine, Baker, Mike, like this team has higher expectations for themselves than they did last year. Like they see all the talent around, they know they have all the talent, and Jamel Dean's like, you know what? We're better than that. We're gonna
Mhm.
win our 3rd Super Bowl this year. So it was a bold statement. I felt Jamel Dean kind of in all his answers today was very blunt, and he was just like very, very honest, which was encouraging to hear.
And I appreciate him being open and candid and being
Yeah,
honest. That's way better than just, regular generic answers that not just the Bucks, but like all athletes around the world give. So I appreciate him giving his true, honest answer. And there definitely are similarities. Building the chemistry, there's no doubt about it. These teams have been closer. Baker Mayfield is a part of that. It's also a little apples to oranges because Tom Brady gets in there, but it's also like the COVID season, and it's a team that was not was not winning until Tom
yeah,
Brady showed up. So it was like, oh my God, like now Tom Brady's here. Like we have to take advantage of it. And everybody straightened up and made sure that they did everything right. And that's not to say that that's not to say that like they're not taking it seriously now, but this definitely seems like more of a camaraderie than where it was a little more business like just going out and winning the Super Bowl. And I think that's almost why the 2021 team was better because they were a little more
yeah.
relaxed. It's like, all right, we went out and did it. Now we can be focused, but then also kind of like enjoy the fruits of their labor. Now, they didn't win the Super Bowl that year, so the 2020 is still the best team, but it's certainly a great conversation. We need to get to this super chat. Thank you
Yeah.
so much to Zach Jarvis for the
Wow. Thank you, Zach.
49.99 super chat. That is mighty, mighty nice of you, and we really, really appreciate it. You, the man of the day, Zach Jarvis.
Real MVP right here.
Yeah, you're the MVP, Zach Jarvis. You're our goat. But thank you so much, Zach. Commenter of the day, Zach Jarvis. Last season we did not do good. Jose and Watts doesn't scare anybody. What happens if Diaby or Reddick gets hurt? Then we have the same exact edge rush group as last season. I like Diaby and Reddick, but if they get hurt, we will be in trouble. They will definitely, without a doubt, look at other options if Yaya Diaby and Hassan Reddick get hurt. There's, without
Yeah.
question, they have to explore options at that standpoint. Marquise Watts, I don't know how much better he's getting.
He's just
At this
plateauing.
point, yeah, he kind of is what he is at this point. Jose Ramirez, I feel like at times hasn't gotten a fair shake. Again, he had a hat trick of sacks against Jacksonville last year in the preseason. How does that not earn you another look
Right.
or another shot or another opportunity? If three like starting caliber outside linebackers get injured, they of course have to go and address it somewhere else. But until that happens, remember, you can't just go and bring in another outside linebacker because, well, what do you do with the offensive lineman? What do you do with the tight end room? What do you do with the safeties and the defensive backs? There's more pieces to the puzzle than just, oh, we need an extra body here and there. Now, if something does happen to Chris Braswell or Diaby, then if there's another injury to a top 4 outside linebacker, then I think you start making some phone calls, taking some other looks. But it's a lot of what if right now at the moment.
Yeah, it is a lot of what if, and just to the point of like we have the same edge room as last season. I think that this edge room is better than it was last season, even if like Reddick is down. Like you have more upside in Diaby compared to last year. Like I feel like he's become more of a finished product. I feel like
Yeah.
Braswell, like all indications are that he's taken a substantial leap, even if he goes from like 1 sack to 5 or 6 sacks. I know we're not just counting that, but if he becomes a more polished player, I think you'll take him over Joe Tryon-Shoyinka last year. And like just Jose Ramirez and Marquise Watts getting the opportunity to see the field more, I think will allow them, more chances to prove that they belong. I feel like, to your point, they didn't really get a fair shake the past couple of years just because the room was so stacked. But at the same time, they had that opportunity and they didn't necessarily seize it last year. So I feel like an outside addition would help to some extent.
It would push everybody. It would
Yeah.
motivate everybody. But again, all the pieces of the puzzle have to work. So not ruling it out. It could happen at some point, but I think it's a little earlier right now. Like the depth at offensive tackle was way worse than what's going on with the
Yeah.
depth at outside linebacker at the moment. A couple more super chats to get to as we round out the show. Tyler Lavelle, thanks for the $5 super chat.
Thank
Says,
you.
has the cadence been any false starts or offside draws? I worry about Gedeke, Barton, and Baker have recovered. There's been one or two false starts, but none by the starters, none
There
by
was one
Gedeke.
today
Yeah,
by Luke Haggard.
yeah, Haggard. Logan Hall jumped off sides the other day. There's been one or two offsides, one or two false starts, but not to the point where it's been sloppy and undisciplined. There's been some growing pains with the backup centers. Graham Barton's been fine, but there's been a couple of like botched snaps and timing hasn't always been great. So that needs to be cleaned up a little bit. But overall, by the time we get to the regular season, I don't see it being an issue.
And I will say, like, Barton has looked a lot cleaner, and just like the dynamic between Barton and Baker, I feel like is on a whole other level than it was last year. And just the strides that Barton has made is not just like coach speak, like you actually see it out there on the field. I mean, Vita Vea is a challenge in its own right, but
Yeah.
you're seeing Barton kind of handle things a lot better than he did last year. And just the communication, like you're seeing the cadence. I think the cadence has been fine. And especially Gedeke too. Like he's not really jumping too much or anything. Like these guys are looking pretty sharp up front.
There's a cadence we like to do on this show, and that's giving a shout out to our Pewter Platinum members. So let's get to it. Thank you to Scott Federico, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Scotty J, Dave Anderson, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel Elrican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zap Brannikin, RP89, Eric McMillan, Connor for Reals, Kevin Thomas, Zach Jarvis, the commenter of the show today, Leighton Carter, The Guy is Gifted, Brandon Riley, Alec Bickler, Nick Dubuque, and Mario Thomas. Thank you all so much for your support of PewterReport.com. We have another show tomorrow, so no Pewter Insider, but we are bringing back the Pewter Insiders the following week when there's no more Friday practices. So we do miss doing those private shows with just our Pewter Platinum and Premier members. They will be returning, so don't you worry. But we do have another show coming up tomorrow. We're going to do that earlier, probably around like 1 o'clock when practice is over. So keep a lookout for that. Two more super chats to get to, both from Meets McGee. Thank you.
Thank you.
You says, I just want $5. Thank you. Says, Dean said something you guys have felt being around the team, but we're scared to jinx it. I mean, like, are you talking about the comparison to the 2020 team? Like, I think the Bucs are in the conversation to be a Super Bowl contender, but I don't think they're better than the 2020 team.
I think this comment's referring to the camaraderie and like grit of this team.
Oh.
Like we felt it, like in the locker room, like all the guys, and just the closeness that they have with each other, and then the grit, like the hard work that like Baker. It goes from Baker and all the team captains, and kind of like a top down. Like you're seeing it all across the board. Like even backup defensive backs out there just playing their heart out. Like these guys are grinding, and like Levante David said, falling in love with the grind. You're seeing kind of this whole team really show that. But in regards to jinxing it, I mean, right now every team's 0-0. It's hard to really put a gauge on what this 2025 Bucs team looks like, but what they're capable of is going to the Super Bowl. I feel like they have that ceiling, but it's about reaching that and being productive and allowing those elite expectations that they have every week to really be the standard. I mean, in 2020, Tom Brady, when he came in, the standard was elevated. Like he did that himself. Like the guys just started working harder. But now this team, like a whole new cast of players outside of a few guys, like they need to start doing that themselves. They don't have a Tom Brady there, but they have a Baker Mayfield. And I think that kind of has started to elevate them.
Expectations are one thing, saying it is one thing, and doing it is another. So Remains to be seen for Tampa Bay. Meets McGee, thanks for this $2 super chat, says Drew Rosenhaus, has reached out to the Bucs about Shaq. Well, he wants to get his client another opportunity. Jason Lay has always said the door will always be open for Shaq Barrett. I don't know if now's the time to bring in Shaq, but hey, if you want to bring him in for a tryout, I think that's not a bad idea. Rosenhaus also has a lot of representatives on the Buccaneers, including Zion McCollum, Shiloh as well. He he was on the other side of the kind of the fence where the media is, and the Bucs were warming up. He's like, Shiloh, and he turned around and pointed at him, saying, "What up?" So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe something happens with Zion McCollum while he's in town in Tampa. But yeah, Rosenhaus represents a lot of people, so we'll see. I mean, we love Shaq. Wouldn't hurt to see him try out and everything like that. But yeah, got to talk about Zion McCollum and a couple other guys too.
Yeah, and one more thing about Shaq and Zion. I mean, Rosenhaus also represents Hassan Reddick and Anthony Walker Jr., Deion Jones, so his client list is so extensive. But when it comes to Shaq Barrett, I think the team has to consider it a little bit now that David Walker's out for the year. Just having another guy out there getting those reps. You don't really want him to eat away at Ramirez and Watts because you know what he's capable of. But, if he's on the practice squad, kind of like the Sterling Shepard situation, it's not the worst thing. Like a franchise, like not legend, but a really good player that was key to a Super Bowl victory, just casually chilling on the practice squad. And then when you look at Zion McCollum, Matt, and just the fact that, Drew Rosenhaus is trying to get a deal done with the Bucs, what that deal could look like. I know Josh Capo was on the Pewter Report podcast last month, and he's kind of outlining all these deals. I mean, this is a cornerback market where like Sauce Gardner, Derek Stingley Jr., J.C. Horn, they're getting bags. And for Zion McCollum, I think he's still going to be a bargain on a new deal. I believe Capo predicted it would be about $16 million a year, 3 years, $48 million, which would kind of put him around like the 20th highest paid corner in the league. I think that's a fair kind of ballpark range for him.
Yeah, I mean, Zion's not in the tier 1 of corners. He can get there this season if he can record some interceptions, but he's certainly still trending in the right direction. So we'll see. I'd love to see an extension for Zion. I'd love to see one for Gedeke. I'd like to see one for Cade Otton as well. And we'll see what Jason Light, Jackie Davidson, and Mike Greenberg come up with. But they usually end up doing something that works for everybody's favor, but everyone looks at it and says, that's a good deal by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to talk all about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers again tomorrow on the Pewter Report podcast. Time to be determined. It's going to be around 1 or 1:30 like we did last week. So until then, please make sure you are following us on our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And specifically, please subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We are so close.
TV. We are 5 subscribers away from 20,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. It's absolutely free to do. You just click the button and it lets you know when we put out videos, when we put our shorts up, when the YouTube shorts, not our actual shorts, like when we put out a YouTube short, when we have the podcast going on, all the different content that we do. We are 5 subscribers away from 20,000. The Rondé Barber 1,000. So hit the subscribe button to Pewter Report TV. We'd really appreciate it. So yeah, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell us what you think about this Bucs team. If you agree or disagree with what Jamel Dean had to say as well. That'll do it for us on today's show. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We will see you tomorrow for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.